Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. Richmond International Raceway, a track where it's short, fast, but also where tire management and track position come into play. Over the past couple years, we've seen this track become a track position type of race, as well as managing your tires properly between how good you are at the start of a race start versus how you are towards the end of a long run. Well, yesterday we saw tire management and passing become a big factor. And a guy who a week ago was not even in the playoff conversation is now one of the hottest drivers in the sport. Let's get into all that went down at the track in the state that is known for lovers. Number 1, Kevin Harvick. Wow. I can't believe this. Kevin Harvick is on a roll as he captures his second win of the season. By the way, the first back-to-back winner of 2022, winning yesterday's Federated Auto Parts 400 at Richmond International Raceway, holding off a hard-charging Christopher Bell, Chris Buescher, Denny Hamlin, and Chase Elliott for his 60th career NASCAR Cup Series victory. A week ago, before Michigan, Kevin Harvick was not even in the playoffs. He was on the outside looking in. He knew he needed a win to get in. When the checkered flag flew at Michigan, he was the first man across the start-finish line, and he locked himself into the playoffs. And I thought, wow, now that he's got a victory, he could start to get really, really hot. And now he officially is. Now, at the start of the race yesterday, he was relatively quiet. It wasn't really going anywhere. He was talking about the 20th to 22nd place spot at the first part of stage 1. But then as the race began to progress, at the end of that stage, he started to methodically work his way up to the field as a normal veteran does, especially when you manage your tires and you have a good balanced race car. He got his way up to the top 15 by the end of stage 1. Then comes stage 2. He jumps into the top 10. And by the end of that stage, he's in the top 5. I'm thinking, here he comes. He's going to be a factor. Even if he were to win or even if he were not to win, he still is gaining momentum after that big win last weekend. And in the final stage, the early part, he kind of played second fiddle to the 22 car of Joey Logano. Then, as we reached about 70 laps to go, he kept pressuring the 22 car, and with about 60-plus laps left, Harvick passed Logano in the inside, and he took the lead away, and he just drove off, but also having to deal with the late race pit stops and managing your tires versus guys that are coming on fresh rubber. He had a little bit of a challenge with about 30-plus laps to go by Chris Buescher, who needed a win to get in. But Harvick, the veteran that he is, typically doesn't make mistakes. Harvick is one of the best drivers as far as, not being able to, look behind at competitors behind you. He doesn't normally make mistakes. He leaves the pressure behind him. He focuses on what's ahead of him. And he did not let the pressure of Chris Buescher at the very end get to him. However, with about 5 laps to go, Christopher Bell was coming with those fresh tires. And I thought, if this thing was an extra lap longer, Bell would have gotten by him. But Kevin Harvick ended up holding off the 20 car, and he gets his second win of the season. And now he went from 0 bonus points entering Michigan last week to now he has 2 wins, each of them 5 bonus points for the playoffs. He now has 10 bonus points. We've seen Harvick, when he wins, he gets hot. And right now, he's hot. I mean, a lot of people on media are saying, let's not put him in the conversation yet, considering the guy, who hadn't won since 2020 has now won back-to-back races. I think differently. I say he is now a legitimate championship contender with the way he's running. The cars are running well. He's turned Stewart-Haas Racing around a little bit. It looks like they're going to have 2 of their cars in the playoffs, the other being Chase Briscoe. Kevin Harvick is showing up at the right time now after that big win that gets, the stress of wondering if he's ever going to win again. He won. Now he's won back-to-back. And I've got a good feeling he's going to be strong come the start of the playoffs, again, as I mentioned. And, of course, the first playoff race is Darlington, a track where he's won at before. So it would not be a shock to me if Kevin Harvick were to, by any chance, open the playoffs with a win at Darlington. And most of the tracks in that round favor him anyways. The Bristol Night Race as well. Kansas Speedway's been good to him. I think Kevin Harvick and this 4 team are shaping up to be possibly one of those contenders to fight for one of those 4 spots to get to Phoenix. And remember, Phoenix has been known to be his playground. I know he hasn't won there since 2018, but still, he's really good there. So don't count out this 4 car. Congrats once again to Kevin Harvick and Rodney Childers in the 4 team. They are officially one of the hottest teams in the sport right now. Number 2, the Toyotas with a late race charge to go for the win, unfortunately comes up just a little bit short. Christopher Bell, who won a couple of weeks ago at Loudon, New Hampshire, came into this race, obviously a track relatively similar to New Hampshire when it comes to tire management, and it's a relatively short racetrack. At the beginning of the race, he was working his way up using the outside groove, passing guys. Then he starts to slip back and actually lost a lap. Then he got his lap back and worked his way up. But in the middle part of stage 2, he spun around off of turn number 4 on the inside of his teammate Kyle Busch. And he lost his drive position, but then he got it back with good pit stops and right adjustments to his race car. He worked his way up towards the front, and on that last pit stop where he pitted late, because the Toyotas were on a different tire strategy compared to everybody else, he pitted late, got those fresh Goodyear Eagles, and he came flying through the field. He got past a lot of guys. He got past Almirola, he got past Chase Elliott, and when he passed Chris Buescher with about 5 laps to go, I'm thinking, oh boy, he's not really going to be able to run down Harvick. Well, Harvick was getting into some heavy lap traffic at the very end, and Bell kept running him down again. If it was 401 laps, Christopher Bell would have won that race. But nonetheless, the 20 team gaining some solid momentum after, a relatively rough run last week. Obviously, the finish wasn't there for them because they were part of an incident with the 99 car of Suarez. But this weekend, they were able to turn around with a nice second-place finish, overcoming a spin early on. That's also very, very impressive. And Denny Hamlin, of course, his home track, one of his home tracks, really mainly his home track is Richmond Raceway. Relatively strong the entire day, stayed within the top 5, top 10 the entire day. Led some laps, especially with came to the green flag pit stops. But on the final pit stop of the day, Denny Hamlin on pit road. Do I honestly need to say it? Yeah, I'm going to say it. Denny Hamlin and pit road are not a proper marriage. Let's just say it. It never goes well for him on pit road. Yesterday, on the final pit stop, pitting with his teammate Christopher Bell and their other teammate Martin Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin and his team screwed up on the left side. When they were jacking the car up, they had a tough time getting the left front tire on. While the left front tire was already changed, the jack been dropped, and they noticed, oh no, the left front tire has not been changed yet. We got to jack it back up, and they put the new tire on. Those lost precious seconds cost them second place in the running order to Christopher Bell. They lost a spot on that pit stop to the 20 car. They didn't have that happen. They would have been in front of the 20 car, and in all honesty, we could have back-to-back weeks been talking about Denny Hamlin winning these races instead of Kevin Harvick. But the pit crew and Denny Hamlin, again, shoot themselves in the foot when it comes to pit road. Pit penalties, pit miscues. How many more of these are going to have? As I mentioned, come playoff time, you do not want to have these. The 11 team needs to get it together or else there's no championship for this guy. And we're going to be talking about, once again, Denny Hamlin, a bridesmaid. When's he ever going to win the championship? Is he ever going to win it, period? They got to figure it out for themselves. They've got to get it together. Number 3, Joey Logano. Dominant for the first time in a long time, but falls apart late in the race. At the beginning of the race yesterday, Joey Logano hanging around the top 10 for the most part, relatively not at the beginning a contender. By stage 2, the 22 team, like the flick of a switch, came alive. Something we haven't seen from Joey in quite some time. I mean, I know they have 2 wins on the season. They won earlier this year at Gateway. The last time that they went to victory lane, that nice battle at the end with Kyle Busch and the 18 team. That was a very impressive battle for the victory there at the very end. They also won earlier this year, I believe. It was a mile and a half, I believe they won at. I know they had another win earlier this year, but they've been trying to get back into a rhythm and flow because they haven't had a lot of good runs lately. Yesterday, they put together a great performance. They won stage 2. It got themselves another bonus point for the playoffs, and they led the most laps, 224. But as I mentioned, with about 70 laps to go, Kevin Harvick kept pressuring the 22 and got by him with about 60-plus laps left. And Logano kept falling back because there was a big overcast with about 60 laps to go. At that point, the track cooled down, and the Fords, with the exception of Harvick, fell off. And they were not as fast as they were when the sun was out. That's why the Toyotas showed up at the very end, because the track cooled down and the track came to them and benefited them with the cooler temps versus hot temps, which it benefited the Fords. So Logano at the end of the day ends up with a 6th place finish, but still, they have a reason to hold their heads high. They led the most laps, they won a stage, and now they're on a 3-race streak of top 10 finishes. A top 10 at the Indianapolis Road Course, a top 5 last weekend in Michigan, which, it's a good track for Fords, and a top 10 this weekend at a track where he's won at before. So the 22 team starting to get a little bit of momentum back. Obviously, they have not been as dominant as we've seen them in past years, but this time around they were able to put together a dominant race. Obviously they would have loved to win, but at least they're getting some momentum to the 22 team, because as the playoffs are beginning to creep closer, you need to build momentum. And so far, obviously the summer has been dominated by Elliott. Harvick's now on a winning streak. The 22 team, despite not getting a win, they're getting some good results as well. So possibly something to be optimistic about come playoff time for Joey Logano and his whole team. Number 4, Chris Buescher, a guy needing to win to make the playoffs. Of course, missed the race earlier this year at Gateway because he got COVID, got filled in by Zane Smith, did a good job. He's had a really good summer as of late as far as his runs and the performance he's put together. I mean, for the car was on fire at Indianapolis Road Course. He fell 3 laps down. Got all the back and finished in the top 10. That's very, very impressive. They didn't really have the best run at Michigan last week. I can't remember. They finished the race in the top 15, but they didn't really get the finish they deserved. But this weekend, they come to a track where I didn't expect Chris Buescher to really run that well, considering it's not been one of his best tracks. But yesterday, he surprised the heck out of me, and I think a lot of people with the performance he put together. His number 17 car was fast. And in general, the RFK cars ran good. Brad Keselowski ended up getting a top 15 finish at the end of the day, and he's been known to run well here. He's a former winner here. Buescher pressuring Harvick at the very end. We're thinking, if Chris Buescher wins this race, that's going to send the entire playoff grid into a complete 180 and put a 16th winner in ahead of 2 guys that are currently in the top 5 in point standings. We'll get to them in a second. But unfortunately, Buescher was not able to pressure Harvick enough and lost his tires at the very end. Especially, he was caught in some heavy lap traffic when trying to run down the 4 car and ends up at the end of the day coming away with a 3rd place finish. Still, a good result. And Brad Keselowski, when he made the comment saying that Chris Buescher is the real deal and that he is a legit dude, we've been seeing in the runs he's had this summer, he is truly legit for RFK. He is really doing a good job. Obviously, Brad is still taking time getting acclimated to this race team, but lately, the RFK cars have been running well. They've had good speed. They've had good runs. They just can't seem to put together for a win. But next weekend's a road course, and earlier this year at Sonoma, Chris Buescher had a top 5 finish. So maybe Chris Buescher can surprise a lot of people next weekend. If not, then there's still Daytona. I know you don't want to have to rely on your season to go to Daytona and win. But the thing is, if we get a 16th different winner next week, that's not going to matter. He's going to probably be eliminated because he's not, close enough to the guys on points, and we still haven't seen Kurt Busch return yet. So a good result by the 17 team yesterday at Richmond, but they're going to need to win one of these next 2 and prevent somebody else winning if they're going to make the playoffs. And number 5, the playoff battle between Ryan Blaney and Martin Truex Jr. continues to tighten up with 2 races to go. Coming to a track where I thought that Truex would succeed at and Blaney would struggle, didn't really go that way. Actually, it was Truex that struggled for the most part. Blaney ended up getting a top 10 finish at Richmond. Again, that's both races this year he's been inside the top 10. The first time ever in Ryan Blaney's career at Richmond during the Cup Series that he finished both the Richmond races that we go to the same year in the top 10. That's really impressive. They had good speed early on in the race, and they ended up getting a top 10 at the very end of the 10th place run. Martin Truex Jr., on the other hand, I'm a little disappointed. I thought they were going to do a lot better than I expected them to be because, again, Richmond's been one of his strongest tracks in the past. Nearly won there early in the spring. Unfortunately, it's on the different tire strategy than the 11 and the 4, and they got overhauled late by Hamlin and Harvick while racing the 24 William Byron. And Truex, struggled early on. He lost some track position early on in the race yesterday, fell a lap down, but then got by leader Joey Logano with a couple laps left in stage 2 and was able to stay on the lead lap rather than having to lie on the free pass. But they kept working on the car. They started to make some improvements with the car, but at the very end, it wasn't enough. It was only good enough for about a top 10 finish. I think they finished in the 7th spot. But at the same time, you're going to, 7th spot. You're going to look back and thinking, what could we have done differently? This is one of our best racetracks. Why didn't we execute? Why didn't we perform? And the other thing is, Blaney got more stage points than Truex yesterday. So now, instead of being 19 back, Truex is 26 back. Now, again, we go to Watkins Glen next weekend where Truex has run well in the past, and he's a former winner there, and he's finished second the last couple of events there to Chase Elliott. But is Martin Truex Jr. destined to win there, considering how rough their road course program has been this year? I don't know. We're going to find out. But Ryan Blaney, he's had some good runs in road courses this year. Let's see what he can bring to Watkins Glen, because I know Blaney's going to run really well at Daytona. I know Martin Truex won both the stages of the 500 this year, but that doesn't mean anything if you are not able to win. So still going to be a dogfight between these guys for these final 2 races. Overall, my thoughts on the Richmond race in general, I felt like it was a really good race. There was a lot of passing at the very end of the final stage. There were a couple of cautions to start the final stage. One of them involved Chastain and Kyle Busch and Eric Jones getting knocked out of the process. But a lot of passing, a lot of differing strategies as far as your tires, and guys run pitted a couple laps later than other guys and used those tires to charge late to try to challenge for the win, i.e. Christopher Bell and Denny Hamlin. But at the end of the day, there was some good action at Richmond, and we started out in hot, sunny conditions, and then as the track cooled down and with the clouds moving in, we saw a completely different race with those Toyotas charging while the Fords began to struggle. But all in all, it was a relatively good race at Richmond. I thoroughly enjoyed it very much. So next weekend, we're off to Watkins Glen for the penultimate race of the regular season. After that, we have Daytona. Enter the storylines entering this upcoming weekend. How will the playoff bubble fare between Martin Truex Jr. and Ryan Blaney? This is going to be a dogfight once again. Also, Chase Elliott has not yet clinched the regular season championship, but if he is more than 60 points ahead of Ryan Blaney at the end of next weekend, he is the regular season champion and gets those 15 extra bonus points to carry him to the playoffs. And next weekend marks the Cup debut, I should say, of Formula One veteran Kimi Räikkönen, making his NASCAR Cup Series debut in a third trackhouse car. They're calling it Project 91. That's the car number is 91. He'll be entering that car with an opportunity to run in the Cup Series and build another race team program within the Trackhouse organization. And we get to see Kimi Räikkönen back in NASCAR, something we haven't seen since his appearance in the series during Charlotte Speed Weeks in 2011, where he drove in the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series. Truck Series finish was a lot better than the Xfinity Series because he had a pit penalty. But looking forward to see what Kimi Räikkönen does next weekend. I'm looking forward to that. And also, is Chase Elliott going to get his road course dominance back and win next weekend at Watkins Glen? All those questions we will find out at the end of the day. So I hope everyone's looking forward to the fastest super speedway of road course racing next week, and I know I am. So in the meantime, you all have a wonderful week. Subscribe, like, and once again, congrats to Kevin Harvick and the Ford team on back-to-back victories. Have a great week, everybody. Let's go racing!